Fluency and Skills Practice Lesson 3. So go ahead and put your name on this paper if you haven't yet, and let's begin. Okay, so we are rounding whole numbers today, and for numbers 1 through 4, we're rounding to the nearest 10. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do that. So we're going to round 72 to the nearest 10. Over here, I have a number line to help us with that. So we are, again, rounding 72 to the nearest 10. So first of all, we need to decide what tens we're going to put on our number lines. Since we're rounding to the nearest 10, we are counting by tens. So we got to think, okay, 72, which tens are close to that? So the first 10 that's close to that is 70. So I'm going to put that on this side of the, oops, a little blurry here, sorry about that. All right, so we're going to put 70 on one end of the number line, and then over here, the next 10, since we're counting by tens, would be 80. And then you can put your halfway mark in between. So our halfway mark between 70 and 80, well, that's 75, and that goes about here. And then what we need to do is we need to decide where we're going to put 72. Where are we going to put 72 on that number line? So 72 belongs somewhere over here, okay, on the left-hand side of 75, which means that 72 is closer to 70 than it is to 80, okay? So that's the nearest 10 because, again, 72 is closer to 70. So that's our answer for number 1. So that's 70, and that's using a number line to help you with that. Okay, number 2, I have a mountain here to kind of help you. It's kind of like a number line, except it's shaped like a mountain to kind of look at it a different way. So this time we're rounding for number 2, we're rounding 172 to the nearest 10. So again, I got to figure out, since it's the nearest 10, I got to decide which tens are closest to 172. Well, I know that it's 170. And then the next 10, since we're counting by tens, so if we go 170, the next 10 would be 180. And that's the other end of our number line. And our midway point, that's the top of our mountain. So halfway between 170 and 180 is 175. So that's going to go at the top of our mountain. So now what we need to do is decide, where does 172 belong on this mountain? Well, 172 belongs here. So 171, 172. Whoops, 172. So that, my friends, is where 172 goes. Since it's lower than the halfway point, it's closer to 170. So that's what we round 172 to the nearest 10. So the closest 10 is 170. All right. So for 3 and 4, I'm going to show you a different way, and it's what I call the boss method. Let's see, flip over my board here. All right, so what we're going to do is round, again, 2,572 to the nearest 10. Since we're rounding to the nearest 10, that's where we're going to put what I call the stop sign. So we're going to underline the 7, because the 7's in the tens place. All right, and then that's kind of our stop sign. So now we're going to rewrite the 2, rewrite the comma, rewrite the 5, and then this is where we stop. And we got to decide what we're going to do with that 7. Are we the digit that tells us what to do with that 7 is the digit that's after. I call this one the boss. Okay, so this 2 is going to tell us what to do with that 7. Now, if the 2 is 5 and above, then we're going to give this 7 a shove up 1 digit. And if it's 4 and below, we're going to let it go, which means we're not going to do anything to the 7. So since the 2 is 4 and below, it's below 4, we're not going to do anything to that 7. So we're just going to rewrite the 7. And then anything after our stop sign becomes a 0. So we're going to change that 2 to a 0. Okay, and so now we have our answer, 2,570. That's 2,572 to the nearest 10. So the 10 that's closest to this number is 2,570. Okay, so that's our answer here, 2,570. Okay, now let's do number 4. with the boss method. So that one's down here. Okay, so again, we're rounding 101,372 to the nearest 10. So once again, we're putting our stop, since we're rounding to the nearest 10, our stop sign goes in the tens place, which is our 7. So we're going to rewrite the 1, rewrite the 0, rewrite the 1, rewrite the comma, rewrite the 7, and then we stop. And again, we got to decide what to do with that 7. This 2 is our boss. The boss tells us what to do. So again, 5 and above, we're going to give this 7 a shove. If it's 4 and below, we're going to let it go. Since again, 2 is below 4 and below, we're not going to do anything to that 7. We're going to leave it alone. So that's why we're going to just keep it a 7. And everything after the stop sign becomes a 0. All right, so that 2, I changed it to a 0. So again, this is the answer. So 101,372 to the nearest 10 is 101,370. All right, friends, we are now on number 5. In 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. These are all to the nearest 100 instead of the nearest 10. So this will look a little different because we're rounding to the nearest 100. Our answers are going to be in the hundreds rather than in the tens. So we're going to start with 180, and they're asking us to round that to the nearest 100. So up here, I have our number line, and when we're dealing with 180, all right, we have to go, well, the nearest hundreds would be 100 and 200, because 180 is somewhere on this number line between 100 and 200. So I put our midway point of 150 because that's halfway between 100 and 200. And I'm just going to put 180. Sorry, let me zoom in here a little bit. It's still fuzzy. There we go. Maybe a little better. There we go. All right. So now we're just going to put 180 somewhere on this number line. So 180 is somewhere about here. Okay, so that's where 180 goes. And as you can see, because it's on the left-hand side of the halfway point, 180 is closer to 200. So that's what the nearest 100 is. Okay, so that is our answer. So when we round 180 to the nearest 100, it's closer to that 200 rather than the 100. All right, number 6 is we're taking the number 1,180. And again, we're rounding that to the nearest 100. Okay, so for this one, I drew a mountain. Again, and the nearest hundreds are 1,100 and 1,200. So in between 1,100 and 1,200 is 1,150. Again, because if we just take out the thousands for a second, you could see that it's 100, 150, 200, right? And then we just have 1,000s. All right, so now we need to put this number on somewhere in our number line. So again, 1,180 would land about here because it's larger than 1,150 and smaller than 1,200. So since we're on this side of the mountain, we are closer to 1,200. So that's the answer. So again, when you're rounding 1,180 to the nearest 100, it's 1,200. All right, so for number 7, I'm going to go back to this boss method over here. So we're trying to round 56,180 to the nearest 100. Since we're rounding to the nearest 100, again, the digit we're underlining is the digit in our hundreds place, which is this 1. Okay, so again, when you're using the boss method, you put the stop sign under the digit you're rounding to. So you rewrite the 5, you rewrite the 6, rewrite the comma, and then you stop. And then you got to decide what we're doing with that 1. The 8 here is our boss. The boss tells us what to do. It tells us what to do with this 1. So since the boss is at 8, it's 5 and above, which means we need to give this 1 up, shove up 1 digit. So instead of saying 1, we're shoving it up to a 2. Again, 5 and above, giving it a shove. So we're taking this 1, making it a 2. Then everything after the stop sign becomes a 0. So this 8, we're changing to a 0. And the 0, well, we're just going to keep it at 0. All right, so the answer, when you round 56,180 to the nearest 100, is 56,200. All right, so that's our answer for number 7. 56,200. Okay, I'm going to have you do 8, 9, and 10 on your own and see how you do. I'll give you the answers when you return, see how you do. And yeah, so go ahead and pause the video and do 8, 9, and 10. All right, folks, welcome back. So for number 8, the nearest 100 is 1,000. Over here, it's number 9 was 2,000. Number 10 was 57,000. Okay, and these are all maybe a little tricky because the hundreds was 900s, and we had to round up to the next 100, which is in the thousands, right? So when we're looking at 980, that's closer to 1,000 than it would be 900. So that's why we're all moving up 1,000 on those ones. Okay, so for the next few, I'm just going to use the boss method because I like that one. If you like number lines, please use that. And I'm just going to do a couple for you in the thousands and then in the 10,000s, and then I'll have you try the rest on your own. Okay, so for number 11, we're rounding 7,750 to the nearest 1,000. So again, since we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, we put our stop sign underneath the thousands place. Okay, so we got to stop right away. We got to decide what we're doing with this 7 here in the thousands place. This 7 is our boss. And the boss tells us what to do with this 7 here. Since it's 7, it's 5 and above, which means we need to give this 7 a shove up to the next digit, which is 8. And then everything after the stop sign becomes a 0. So we're going to rewrite that comma. This 7 becomes a 0. This 5 becomes a 0. And that 0, well, that stays a 0. So our answer here to rounding 7,750 to the nearest 1,000 is 8,000. So that one's number 11. Over here is 8,000. Okay, number 12. Again, we're rounding to the nearest 1,000. So we're going to put our stop sign under the nearest 1,000. Oh, sorry, the digit in the thousands place. So we're going to rewrite the 1, and then we're going to stop. Once again, we need to decide what we're doing with this 7 here. Since the 7, the next digit, the boss, is 5 and above, we need to give this 7 a shove up. We're going to make it an 8 again. Then you rewrite the comma. Everything after the stop sign becomes 0. So that 7 becomes a 0. This 5 becomes a 0. And that 0 stays a 0. So now we're at 18,000 is our answer when we round 17,750 to the nearest 1,000. So that was 18,000 for number 12. All right, go ahead and do 13, 14. Pause the video. Go ahead and give those a shot. And then I'll come back and give you the answers. Okay, welcome back. So for number 13, the answer you should have got was 26,000. And then for number 14, again, the nearest 1,000 was 71,000. Okay, so that's what you should have got for those ones. All right, number 15 down here. Now we're rounding to the nearest 10,000. So we have 65,321. Since we're rounding to the nearest 10,000, we underline the digit in the 10,000s place. So that's a 6. Our 5 is the boss. So again, 5 and above, we're going to give this digit a shove since it is a 5. So it's 5 and above. So we're going to make this 6 a 7 because we're giving it a shove up one digit. Then we're going to change the 5 to everything after the stop sign becomes 0. So this 5 becomes a 0. We rewrite the comma. The 3 becomes a 0. 2 becomes a 0. And a 1 becomes a 0. So now we have our answer of 75,000. Sorry, 70,000, not 75, 70,000. All right. 70,000. All right. This next one, again, we're rounding 165,000. Let me rewrite this, 321 to the nearest 10,000. So again, since we're rounding to the nearest 10,000, our stop sign goes on the 10,000s place, which in this case, it's the 6. You rewrite the 1, and you stop. Once again, it's 5 and above, so we're going to give this 6 a shove to make it a 7. Everything after the stop sign becomes a 0. So that 5 becomes a 0. You put your comma. 3 becomes a 0. 2 becomes a 0. And that 1 becomes a 0. So our answer is 170,000. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop here for today, and I want you to do the rest on your own. If you have questions, please reach out to your teacher, and I hope you have a good day.